Partnerships are challenging, right? They're challenging. It's always nice to be the master of your own domain.
Ooh, nice Seinfeld reference.
But not always. That is a Seinfeld reference indeed. But not always, right? I mean, solo, well, sometimes a couple is a little nicer. So sometimes having that partner is nice. And in some cases, I see people who, they're down for a throuple. So they wind up, there's the three of them. And then in case, sometimes it's a quadruple. And okay, like 5, I don't know what you're thinking. That, in my personal opinion, is absolutely too many cooks in the kitchen. And I picked this gift for a reason, because seriously, one of the cooks at that point, they're not even a cook. They're not even a real panda. They're just a person dressed in a panda suit smashing things around. Like those dynamics can get really, really interesting. The more people you add, the more cooks in the kitchen, the more cooks in the kitchen, the more challenging it gets. And of course, a lot of times you picture this pair bond that we're going to form, this business partnership we're going to have. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best thing ever. And then, the wave of reality comes in, and it's maybe not the best thing ever. That's just the way things go sometimes. So again, begin with the end in mind. Wow, that might have been the theme, not questions. Begin with the end in mind. Having a prenuptial is really important. It's often in the form of a shotgun clause. That's a term that if you're forming a partnership, you might want to get yourself familiar with to some extent. And you want to figure out, how are we valuing this business? Who's putting a value on it? Is there an independent third party putting a value on it? Are we agreeing on some kind of metric that we're using today that will actually apply tomorrow? Because if we come together today and I'm buying into your business and I'm writing you a check for $1 for 50% of your business, 5 months from now, 5 years from now, when I feel like I've put my blood, sweat, and tears into your business for the 5 hours a week I worked for it, I want $10 back. And you want to give me 10 cents back because you don't value my 5 hours the way I value my 5 hours, or whatever it might be. Or maybe it's 95 hours, right? But you don't value my 95 hours the way I value my 95 hours at all per week. So how are we valuing this thing? You need to figure these things out, because 50% of partnerships end in disaster a lot of the times, because it's all fun and games when the money's rolling in and everything is good and everybody's happy and nobody's dealing with any addiction issues or challenging other issues, insert issue here, right? And when things start to go sideways for a second, a third, a fourth time, and you have to do something, you have to break up, you have to figure out a way to untangle this thing, did you actually put anything in place up front? And I'll always remember the story a lawyer told at an event that I was at about real estate partnerships. And he would have people come in and they've written up their 2-page agreement and they just would like to have a lawyer just quickly review it for them before they sign it. Maybe he could witness it too and stamp it for them. And he would always say, I'd turn around and I pull down my 32-page basic partnership agreement for the purchase of a piece of real estate, and then we go from there. And that was the average. The average clients walked in with 2 pages, and his basic boilerplate standard partnership agreement for the purchase of a single piece of real estate was 32 pages. 32 pages. And who are you partnering up with? Is it family? Is it a friend? Is it an acquaintance? Is it a silent partner, yet deadly? Who are you partnering up with? You have to think about this because there could be ramifications, right? What kind of ramifications? Here's a quote from somebody about a partner. This is from a few years ago. I just came across it actually, but I love it. The most expensive and unmanageable employee I ever had, with a massive severance package hanging around their neck from day one, right? The most expensive and wildly unmanageable employee ever. That's basically what they had. And it was painful getting rid of them. It cost a fortune for that individual to get control of their company back again. Now, why are you bringing a partner in? If you're the one that has the thing, and I just had this conversation locally in my hometown now, my new adopted hometown of Squamish, with somebody who runs a completely separate business, but they know that I'm a business guy, and they said, hey, have you got a few minutes? And I said, sure. And we got talking. And they have someone in their life that they really like. They're fantastic. They think they can contribute and help them grow their business, who wants to buy into their business. And I said, well, do you need money? Not really. And certainly the amount of money they'd be buying in for, it's not life-changing money, so it's not really going to do a whole lot for me. So no. And I'm like, okay, do you need help? Like, are you working 90 hours a week right now? And if you are, could you just hire somebody to help you get control of your life back? No, I've got pretty good control over my life right now. I'm like, okay, so these are really the two primary reasons to bring a partner in. There's other reasons, but I'm trying to keep this somewhat simple. We're not doing a whole day on partnership, we're doing a segment on partnership. So money or help, which one do you need? Those are really kind of the fundamental reasons. And in the broker space, bringing in a partner, especially if, you have things going on in your life that do suck you away for a week or two here or there, and having someone who can step in and cover off, yeah, that can be really valuable. But then how are you valuing the business, right? That can get really tricky to work out. So sometimes it's really just about, well, brokering's lonely. It's lonely. I didn't want to be alone anymore. I wanted some company. Or again, that whole, well, I bought into the brokerage, I bought into this person's business because I just thought I'd get a nice little dividend check. And that, to me, is a little bit crazy. That's the silent partner that wants to write you a check and then take a chunk of the earnings. And so what are you doing, right? You're selling your future earnings for some present value cash. Well, how much of your future earnings are you giving up today for a lump of money now from a silent partner that isn't even going to do anything? Like, great, you're getting a lump of money now, and maybe that allows you to do something important right now. Buy a home, pay out a spouse, pay out an ex-business partner, settle a lawsuit, whatever it might be. But what is going to be the legacy? I'm using the word differently than it's about to appear. What's the legacy of that? You've taken, say, $100,000 today, $100,000, $200,000, doesn't matter, pick your number. But what have you given up? You might have given up $25,000, $50,000 a year for 10 years. Great return for the silent partner, not so nice for yourself. That is one of those ones where it's going to go from sweet to bitter very, very quickly. Now, maybe you're just bringing somebody in as a legacy move. It's a family member, right? I know there's at least one multi-generational, there's at least three. I can think of three right off the top of my head, multi-generational people viewing this right now. And you've got someone coming in, but is that person coming in first as an employee? Make sure they actually like the business, get things sussed out. Can you handle the pressure cooker that broker industry is? Are you interested in this, or are you committed? And I don't think you give somebody or even sell somebody shares in your corporation lightly. I think you really need to test drive that person for a significant period of time. And do you need the capital, right? Is it needless capital? Is there a need for it? Meaning the business doesn't need it at all. Maybe you personally need it, but the business doesn't. The business is doing fine. Should you leverage your business, it is otherwise a healthy, ongoing, growing concern, to solve a personal problem that in the long term, a short-term personal problem that in the long term, you're kind of going to regret, right? And I had a business partner years ago, and he worked for me for a number of months beforehand, and I got a pretty good read on who he was. And I could see this is a guy who takes things seriously. He's way more detail-oriented than I am, much more detail-oriented than I was. And it worked out really well. It worked out really well until it didn't. And it had an unfortunate ending to it. It is what it is. I'm not going to go on at length about it. It's not my place to do that, but I feel like it had an unfortunate ending. Because as you can tell, I'm somebody who likes to talk. I like to chat with people. But it is what it is. But at the time, as I say, we went for a little test drive. Looked pretty good. We partnered up, And it went really, really well for a number of years, until multiple outside influences just kind of put us into a pressure cooker that we couldn't survive together, and on we went. And the dissolution was not as simple as it could have been had things been better drawn up front. Now, another piece of the question is your business home-based right now? And is this person expecting an office? Because you might have a vision of, yeah, well, we'll partner up and it's just all about the production. It's all about the numbers. They might have a vision, maybe they grew up watching a little too much Entourage and they want to be Ari Gold. They want the Ari Gold offices. They want the 12-foot glass walls everywhere. They want a receptionist they can yell down the hall at. And, they're picturing this hustling and bustling environment. They want to go out and sign a $10,000, $20,000 a month lease right now and get some fancy office space. And you're good. You're good at home. You got to nail down those fundamental differences. And if you have the Ari Gold offices, you've got the fancy offices, and you own them, which is awesome, as you should, when you bring in a partner, are you also selling them a piece of the equity in the property? I would suggest that's a very serious consideration and not something to do lightly, and probably not something to do right up front. Step by step, let's work together for a period of time. Then we'll talk about share ownership in the corporation. Let's do that for a while. Then we'll talk about my real estate assets, which are actually held in a different company, ideally, anyway. And what about your commutes to that office? And the commute seems like a small little detail. How could that be relevant, Woodhouse? What does that matter? I bring that up only because it is in the details that the devil shall be found. The undoing of a partnership can be over something as ridiculous as an argument about one person's commute time being 20 minutes longer than another's. No, this is not a story of my own whatsoever. It's an outside story, third-party story. But one individual wanted credit for the hours from the moment they left their home until they returned to their home, which they judged to be about an extra half an hour per day, 2.5 hours per week, 10 hours a month, 120 hours a year, 1,200 hours over a decade, 1,200 extra hours I've been away from my home working on this business. Wait, your sentence falls apart. You weren't working on the business, you were driving to the business. Doesn't matter, I was away from my home, 1,200 hours. And I'm worth $100 an hour, where's my compensation? And I can't make this kind of stuff up. Well, I guess I could, but I'm not. So, clarity around the titles and the roles and all the little nuances and details and who feels responsible for what. And when does the actual work start, right? And how is the actual work defined and divided and measured? And job titles matter to some people. I don't care about a job title. It doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, I don't know, in the incorporation documents, I'm the president of my corporation. Call me the secretary. I don't care. I don't care what I'm called. Just call me because I want to do some business, right? I mean, that's all it boils down to. And when? Timing of this whole thing. Written agreement regarding when are we working? What are our actual hours of operation? What are our days and weeks of vacation? Dates. Write down dates. We take this special long weekend every year. You better make sure that's written down and you understand. And what's your policy between December 24th and January 2nd? Some people like myself basically look at that as 10 days of not really working. I mean, I work, but I'm not really available. I'm working on stuff without being bothered by the outside world. That's what I look at those dates as. And many of us have special family dates, religious dates. There's different things that happen in different people's lives on different dates. Do you have conflicts? Are you in agreement? Do you understand that this person will never, ever, ever work on these specific dates? It's not going to happen. It's going to be on you no matter what. Clarifying these things is crucial. There's a lot of conversations to have about a partnership, right? Policies and procedures. And when I say policies, I mean insurance policies. What happens if they die? What happens? Are you now in business with their spouse? I mean, you're kind of in business with their spouse anyway, because the spouses are going to have their own influence if each party is married or even one's married. The spouse is like a silent partner. playing a role, chirping away, right? So do you have a death policy? Is there a life insurance policy, a death insurance policy, that's going to pay out immediately and buy out the shares of the company? Like that person just gets paid out, the estate gets paid out, and you own the company again. Is that clearly written and spelled out? And is it papered? Does a policy exist? Worse than death, in some cases, disability. They're not gone, they're still here. What's happening? Do we have a disability insurance policy of some kind that's going to kick in? Do we have critical illness coverage? These things matter. And what if they prove to be critically stupid? Have you got a policy? Have you got a procedure to figure out how you're going to untangle yourself? Again, that I think goes to the whole take it one step at a time. Get in slowly. But if it blows up, where's that prenuptial? Where's that shotgun clause? How did you value the business then? How are you valuing it now? This is pretty important stuff. Because before it blows up, before you even start, is where I'm getting at. Before it blows up, before you even start, what external relationships could be impacted by this blowing up? Is it worth the risk? Am I going into business with a family member where if this goes sideways, the way this family member is wired, it's going to put a massive rift in our extended family. It's going to be ugly. Is it worth the risk? And are you being honest with yourself about the risk? And as I say, the gut check is crucial in a lot of things in life. When the gut says yes, you don't go. When the gut says yes, verify, verify, verify. You don't just go for it. And when the gut says no, you run. Then you run. When the gut says yes, stop. Stop. Don't act. Verify, verify, verify. Take it slowly. When the gut says no, get the hell out. Don't sit there trying to prove your gut wrong, right? Whether it's a client file, whether it's a partnership situation, those little red flags that fly up, when your gut says no, go. Get out. We all know, we've all been there. Months later, years later, oh, I knew. I had a conversation with someone recently. They said, I wrote a note in my diary 10 years ago. It might have been 12 years ago. 10 years ago, I wrote a note in my diary, something isn't right here. Something isn't right here. It took a decade for that to come home to roost, right? Listen to your gut when your gut says no. And then just a little checklist, which again, we can share this. I haven't created this one as a checklist, but it'll come out later on. Run the DISC personality profile on one another. Are you the yin to each other's yang, right? Like, you don't really want to be carbon copies of one another. You're both going to be struggling to grab the steering wheel, or you're both going to be struggling to just not touch the steering wheel. Either way, somebody needs to be the driver, somebody needs to be the navigator. Test drive the concept, right? Test drive the concept. Hire them, bring them in, have them working, pay them a wage, pay them a salary, pay them, but don't partner with them right away. And make sure you've got lawyers drafting documents, not yourself. And absolutely, meet the life partner. Meet the life partners. Make sure you get the life partners together. Don't just go and do a deal and come home and say, the deal's done. Trust me. Trust me. You can tell why I'm saying trust me. That's not the right way to do things with your own partner, and it's definitely not the right way to do things with your future partner. And I don't golf, but if you golf, I know enough about golf, and I have golfed just enough. And in fact, I had just one of these incredible experiences golfing with an individual, one of the first times I ever met them. And there was a little bit of money on each hole. And watching the way that individual played was fascinating. It was fascinating. I mean, I won't say they cheated because that would be wrong, but they cheated on every single hole. It was so fascinating. I haven't golfed with that many people either, so I got to be careful.
They bust out the foot wedge? One of those?
Oh, it was every little trick in the book. It was.
It's my favorite club in my arsenal, the foot wedge.
I'm gonna drop this ball here. Yeah. Like I'm gonna kick that one into the woods and drop this one over here.
Found it. It's over here on the green.
Yeah. It was fascinating. So, I mean, hey, if you're a golfer, you know what I'm talking about. You can learn a lot about somebody. Even just go for a drive. Just go for a drive. Who's driving? Who's naturally getting in the driver's seat? Who's naturally getting the passenger seat? Anybody? Anybody? You're both standing there trying to fight over, oh, you know what, I'll drive, I got this. Yeah, jump in my car. No, it's fine, right? And of course, the good old decision-making process planner, right? Why am I looking at bringing a partner in to my thing that I've got going? Why am I looking at jumping into somebody else's thing that they've got going? What are the emotional reasons I'm doing this for? Because there are emotional reasons. You can't ignore that. It's almost exclusively what drives us. It is exclusively what drives us. And then what are the things I'm calling logical? I mean, they're probably factors, but it's that emotional side is probably a bigger piece. But logically speaking, does this make sense? I'm taking a $100,000 payday today, and I'm going to pay out $50,000 a year every year after. Well, that is going to feel good for year one, and then very quickly by the end of year two, feel like, okay, ouch, maybe this wasn't the best deal.